5 common medieval crimes and their punishments.
Oh.
And they didn't mess around in medieval times. For anyone who doesn't know, crime and punishment in the Middle Ages, very harsh and unforgiving. They didn't play around. They just kind of invented.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. They just kind of invented a horrible, torturous thing to do to you if you were found guilty. So I have a few of these. I thought they were pretty fascinating things. So the first one is called the Three Ordeals.
Okay.
So trials by jury didn't become common until the 13th century. So without a formal way of determining someone's guilt or innocence, the accused were subject to trial by ordeal. There were 3 types of ordeals. Ordeal by fire, ordeal by water, and ordeal by combat. The goal of these ordeals was to subject the accused to extreme circumstances. And if they were able to survive, then they were seen as innocent in the eyes of God.
Well, there you go.
Well, ironically, I think you may have gone through ordeal by fire earlier tonight. You burned your hand. We were talking about this when the show started. Ordeal by fire required the accused to carry a red-hot iron 9 feet and then have their hands bandaged. After 3 days, they were required to show up in court and show their hands. If the wounds had started to heal, they were considered innocent. If their condition hadn't improved, they'd be found guilty. That's it. So a red-hot poker, a red-hot iron, carried in your hands, 9 feet, put it down, bandage your hands, come back in 3 days. If your hands are healing up, you're innocent.
I don't know. I guess, how do we determine healing up after 3 days? I guess not oozing with pus and everything else, I suppose.
Yeah. Or they're still on your arms? Your hands haven't fallen off or anything?
I guess I'm guilty. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so then
awful.
There were 2 different types of ordeal by water.
Oh, not just one.
If they were subjected to a cold water ordeal, their hands and feet were tied and they were thrown into the water. If they began to float, they were considered innocent. If they sank, they were guilty.
Pulling them back up out of the water. Like, well, he's guilty.
That's it. Like, well, dude's guilty. Clearly, you saw him sink like a stone.
Clearly.
But the hot water ordeal is also pretty brutally bad. I don't know which one you want. If you want cold water or hot water. Cold water ordeal, they're going to tie you up, throw you in the water. If you float, you're innocent. Hot water ordeal, those accused had to retrieve a stone from the bottom of a kettle of boiling water. Similarly to ordeal by fire, if their hands had begun to heal after 3 days, they were found innocent. So the thing is this. At least if I get thrown into the cold water, all I have to do is float. And then otherwise, I'm fine. There's no pain. But if it's hot water, I have to reach down into a boiling cauldron to find a hot rock. And then it's like my hands and arms are burning off. But if I've started healing in 3 days, then I'm innocent. I think I'd take the cold water.
Yeah, give me the cold water. I guess these are seasonal punishments.
That's right.
Commit your crimes in the winter, I suppose.
Yeah, they weren't chilling the water. So this is definitely, if you want that cold water, you wait till the winter months before you do anything.
Jeez.
And then lastly, ordeal by combat was used to help 2 parties solve a dispute. This was mostly used when there were no witnesses or confessions to a crime. 2 individuals would fight in combat, and the winner would be declared innocent. While brutal, these ordeals were used to justify God's will in the criminal justice system. If the accused could survive or be found innocent after their ordeals, it was believed they had been given a power by God. So, there you go.
Makes sense.
That's how it works. Yeah. So it really is that easy to figure out if someone is guilty or innocent. Everyone makes it seem like it's so hard, but in the criminal justice system, you can determine this easily. So
we don't need weeks and weeks and months of trials. No, just give them a hot iron and tell them to come back in 3 days.
That's right. I don't know who chose 3 days either.
Yeah,
that's the magic time, but
they really stuck on that 3-day thing too. Like, I wonder if they had it, 4 days at one point and realized, oh wait, everyone starts to heal after 4 days. All these people can't be innocent.
Yeah, we can't have this many innocent people.
Jeez.
Well, I have some of the common crimes from back then and their punishments. Pretty terrible. So, in medieval times, petty theft. So, stealing was one of the most common crimes committed during the Middle Ages. Petty theft relates explicitly to the...
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a lawless wasteland. You could take anything you wanted in the Middle Ages. So, petty theft would obviously be the theft of low-value goods from an individual or business. Depending on the severity of the theft, the consequences could range from public humiliation all the way up to bodily mutilation, which that's a big range. I feel like that's too big of a range, maybe.
That escalated quickly.
They say that the most common punishment for those found guilty of stealing was extra work or fines. Seems pretty fair. According to the thievery code in the Book of Dalarna, the fine could range from 3 to 40 marks. While inconvenient, being fined was not nearly as embarrassing or dishonorable as the more serious punishments. Those guilty of full thievery could be hanged or suffer a more painful fate like bodily dismemberment.
Just hang
It wasn't uncommon for a thief's hands or ears to be cut off, signaling to everyone that they were a criminal. Yeah. So crime did not pay in the Middle Ages.
Sure didn't.
Arson. So, of course, if you're deliberately setting a fire, that could definitely cause problems in medieval times. Even small fires could easily spread across multiple houses since most things were made of wood and straw.
Yeah. There was
an entire community built around being flammable.
Sure.
Arson was considered quite serious. So arson was subject to capital punishment. Capital punishments are equivalent to the death penalty and result in the individual being executed, usually by hanging. This was considered the most serious of punishments, as it often impacted the ruling class's property or land. So basically,
there you go.
It was like arson was the one thing they didn't mess with. You weren't going to be doing any arson. You were just going to die if that happened. So they didn't play around.
Nope. If it affects the ruling class, they do not play. There you go. Right. Some things never change, do they?
That's right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Treason, pretty simple. Everyone knows what treason is. Those found guilty of treason face the most serious punishment, no matter the severity of the crime. In 1351, the punishment for treason became enshrined in the legal code. This punishment involved a gruesome death. The culprit was often hung from a tree, but cut down before their death. Once down from the tree, an executioner would behead them, dismember their body, and ship body parts to other areas. The body parts would be displayed and serve as a warning against those considering a similar crime.
Wow. This is Braveheart all over again, isn't it? This is exactly where they got this from. Imagine that. So talking bad about the crown, this is what it got you. It doesn't seem that far off.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like, oh, they're going to hang you, and then they give you the hope because they cut you down, and then you're like, oh, okay, that was close, guys. I almost died. And like, no, it's cool. We got it. And they're going to cut your head off, dismember you, chop you up, and then ship your body parts to different areas for display.
So everyone can see. Don't talk bad because we don't want an uprising.
That's right.
This is how you control. Like, this is how you control the many. Because it's not like the ruling classes could ever control all those people. No. You just had to make examples.
So many of them, they could have overthrown them anytime they wanted to.
Exactly. But you keep them in fear, and
all it takes. Yeah. Then you have murder, of course. So with murder, it was just death. But women found guilty of murder faced a more brutal death than just meeting the executioner. So if a woman was found to have murdered someone in the Middle Ages, the medieval times, if a woman was found to have murdered someone, they would be hung or strangled and then burnt.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, they didn't mess around. Yeah. So you don't want to be I mean, obviously in the Middle Ages or medieval ages, like being a woman wasn't great anyway. But if you were a woman in medieval times, even murder you were punished worse for murder. That wasn't good enough just to kill you. They were going to also burn your body. And then stealing crops. Stealing crops was viewed as a more serious offense. And so those found guilty of stealing crops from someone's land often had their hand removed, preventing them from stealing anymore and making them a public spectacle to others. So, of course, talking about it again, crops were often stolen from high-ranking lords who owned land, ensuring the ruling elite had control over the punishment of the low, poorer class.
There it is. People aren't stealing crops to like go out and resell them because they're rich.
Right. They're hungry.